Huh.
Hey guys, it's Dane at Jonah Guitars, and I got a brand new build series I'm going to start uploading. It's about this guy right here, the GECKO, and all of the whole process of building will be covered. It's going to be a very complete series. So I hope you join me, and we'll see you there. Well, here's the neck blank for the Nighthawk. I'm not sure what I'm calling this build. It's been a long time since I started. I did the body glue up. It's got walnut on top and maple and mahogany on the back. This is the neck for that guitar. And it's clamped up, ready to get unclamped. The way I decided to do this one a little differently, and I tapered the, it'll be easier to see once the glue and the clamps are all off of it, but tapered the center board the same taper as the outside of the neck, and so all the other boards are the same, are parallel until I carve the neck. So I don't know if that's making any sense or not, but what happens a lot of times when you have a laminated neck, anyway, I cut this center board of the taper, and it's kind of an experiment. I like the idea. The concept in my head is good. We'll see if it works out when I actually get to building the neck. So it's definitely narrower at this end than that end, and then I'll glue some extra stuff on for the peg head if needed. It's quite a bit wider than I need for the actual neck, so I might not have to glue any ears on. Just looking at it, it's hard to say. Anyway, this will become two neck blanks. I'll get it out of the clamps and we'll take a look at it. I'll scrape it, clean it up, and then take a little more video of it. So anyway, I use the table saw. As you can see, I have holes through the wing here, and that allows me to well, you can see these two parallel bars here are exactly the same underneath where the neck is glued down, so that gives me a straight what's the word for that? Anyway, substrate, a straight area that I can clamp that down to. I know this wing isn't going to bend, so if you just clamp all this stuff together and there's any kind of slight bow in the board, all the boards are straight in themselves, but parallel except for that center wedge. But if you clamp them, they can move a little bit, and you could end up with a piece that's not exactly straight. So clamp down against a straight edge like this this saw table prevents that from happening. This will be, if not cut directly in half, it will be, one neck will be laid out going one direction, and another neck laid out the other way, so that you can get two necks yield out of this. Except it just dawned on me that it's tapered. I have to be tricky how I do this now, because I can't just flip-flop necks. I may have just wasted half a neck blank. Anyway, okay. News to me, just dawned on me. Well, I'm going to get out of the clamps and see if I can get it cleaned up and just kind of run it through the joiner and straighten out at least one edge of it and see how it lays out. Okay, got the neck all unclamped. I didn't say what was in this neck before. We got Spanish cedar on the outside, these two outside edges. These two thinner strips here are, I think they're Nara, which is some sort of an Asian rosewood that I had left over for some tables that I built on commission for a recycle company. wood recycler. I've also built teak guitars because I had wood left over from pole houses that they disassembled in Thailand that were all teak. Built some tables out of that as well. The centerpiece is lace wood, and I put it back up on the rack. I bought this piece originally. I was thinking about bending some acoustic sides out of it. I never did get to that. So it's been in the rack for years now, as has the Spanish cedar. Spanish cedar, some say, is very close, if not, well, actually what I heard was it was closer to the original makeup. This is exciting footage here. Looking at a bunch of boards glued together. Spanish cedar, however, is, they say, closer in actual makeup and sound and all that to the mahogany, genuine mahogany that was used in the early Les Pauls. It looks very similar to that wood. And let's see, one of these edges had some, that's the edge right there. I don't know that you'll see it in the camera or not. If I wet it, you probably would. Very, very close in makeup to just good old mahogany. And I'll tell you what, it machined pretty much the same, and but it smells wonderful. It is really, really nice. So I put some pins when I was doing the glue up just to hold things in place while I was clamping. So what I do is cut those off, double check the length of my neck, cut those off where those pins are at, and then run it through the joiner. Start with the other side, which is closer to flat. Dress this thing out, and I'm going to bring you back in after that. Okay. All right. I got this thing cleaned up and ran through the joiner. Get a better idea what this wood looks like. I think I'm going to go ahead and spritz it. Hang on while I make you sick. Roaming around the shop here. I got to get it off my saw table though. Otherwise I'll have rust. My pile of air hose. Alright. Very, very skillful camera work here for you guys. Alright, now we got it back up here. Don't know if wetting that gives you any real... Darkens that Nara up a bit. And then that center lace wood. That's a really interesting looking wood. Not sure the edge grain like that. It's a little different on the flat. But and the Spanish cedar. I have a strip I cut off of this that's really thin. If it was just in my rack, in fact, a month from now when I'm digging through my rack, I'll be calling it mahogany. So anyway, I got to move down because now that's wet and I don't want to put that on my saw. All right, so. All right, where I had the brads, I ended up just chiseling down in there enough to pull the brads out. They're both of these things pretty much, if you look at kind of this is a Les Paul neck template, and that's not what I'm going to be doing here, but here's for instance, if I run it down this end, the one brad I didn't take out is underneath the cutoff, so that's not going to be an issue. Not to mention the hole in top is not going to be an issue. This is going to be a 9-string, so that is longer than a standard Les Paul headstock, by the way. And then the last Nighthawk copy I did, which is on video, had this headstock. I think it's on video. I'll have to double check. Anyway, that was a 4 on top, 2 on the bottom configuration. And that's peghead itself is longer than what a Les Paul peghead is. Well, way longer because, like I said, this is longer. This is the actual pig head. It was a tip back, so it would even gain a little length in that. Why am I saying all this? So, this pattern on here, if we get it back, same sort of thing. If this one tips back, it doesn't really matter. But I've got this other hole right here, and I've got a brad in the side right here where this white line is. But this line on my neck blank says neck end. This is the end of the fretboard, right here, and that's the 16th fret. That's where it joins the body. Sticking to a Gibson standard as far as the neck to the body, just for balance. But anyway, so if I bring all this down here and miss, well, I don't even have to miss it. I can bring this right down to the end, because where the end of the fretboard is, there's a notch down into the pickup cavity. It's going to go down in here and cut that out. And then below that is what's going to glue into the neck pocket. Okay, so either one side or the other of that pin, and I'm good. So I'm not worried about that. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, but this neck is, the template is centered. So this neck blank is actually tapered the same as the neck already. I just have to bring it in parallel to the template. And I mentioned before it's going to be a 9-string. You can see that if I take it to where I have plenty of room up here for a pig head. I'm thinking about going flat, basically, which so you have the standard kind of a fender, offset, rather than doing a tip back, because if I have to add length to the peg head and I have to tip it back as well, I don't want to have an issue with getting it in a case. Okay, I still haven't decided. I'm batting all this around. I'm not going to be able to use this particular peg head style and add 3 pegs. So anyway, that's kind of trying to keep it a brief update. So you had a few sections here of just kind of what's going on with the neck. I spared you the tedious prepping the wood to size and gluing things together and all that. So I think I spared you that. It's kind of tedious, kind of boring. That's not the fun part of building guitars. So we got the truss rod channel routed into the neck blank, which is just for conversation's sake, is a lot bigger than it needs to be. I don't know if you can see probably not. Yeah, you can see the pencil lines. This is consistently about a ½ an inch on either side wider than it needs to be. 3/8, excuse me. 3/8 on either side. So 3/4 overall. So the entire blank width is about 3 inches on the white end, and down at where the net happens, it's about 2.5, and then out at the point of the headstock down to 2.25, because it was all tapered, if you recall. You can see the centerpiece is tapered. All the other pieces are parallel rips. And anyway, I'm hoping that creates a pretty nice effect during the carve portion of it. So we're going to pop the rod out. I'm going to go ahead and it's stuck in a pretty good on that end. Go ahead and cut this out on the bandsaw, and up to where the headstock design has not been finalized at all. So up to this point, I'm just going to cut that. I'm going to go ahead and get my my fretboard material, which is Bolivian rosewood, and it's a really pretty piece of wood. So I'm going to rip this down in my bandsaw, resaw it down to try to get around 5/16. Probably have to go a little wider than that just to make sure I don't have to undercut it. Anyway, I've got the resaw blade in the saw now, so I'll be cutting this out with the wider blade in it. And just get quick and dirty on that. And then I'll use, unless I hope I made a 1/2 inch template and just use this as a pattern. I don't like routing against a 1/4 inch, just in case it'll work, but I usually end up making a 1/2 inch thick pattern just to give my bearings a little more bearing. Anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around. So I should have cut the end of this neck off, or should have found and squared the end of the neck off before I cut the taper, just to make things a little simpler. However, the whole thing was already on a taper. I should say, before I put my truss rod in, I should have found center on the neck, because I could have measured right. I could have eyeballed the center of that piece of wood. Anyway, with the grieving, I wasn't quite as confident, so I tape across there, found centers, and then used the protractor and centered the lines and squared that end off. So that's Spanish cedar, and I got Spanish cedar on the outside and then lacewood on the middle. In the middle piece, and then I've got this rosewood through the dark lines there, darker lines. Anyway, it really made a difference cross-cutting that. You can really feel that lacewood is like nothing. So I'm glad I straddled it with this harder rosewood strips. It's not going to make any difference with the truss rod in there, but it's kind of a nice light neck. I laid out my template. I did actually find another neck template. It's made out of a thicker panel of which I don't know what it is. It's a harder board than just regular masonite. So it was some sort of display at work, and I took it apart and used the material for template stock. Anyway, so I laid it out on the neck where I was using this for a fret press. Boy, I was using this for a fret press. I unplugged it. When I have my fret call in there, I don't like it plugged in. So these are a few screws I'm going to put in this so I have a mechanical connection to the neck, rather than a sticky tape connection. I may very well put a little sticky tape on there, but I probably won't need it with the 3 screws in there. Countersink this so the screw heads don't get in the way of the router table. move the camera again. All right, so when I laid these holes out, you can see I had some center holes already laid out in my my template, and that would have been for a blank that I had not previously routed the truss rod into. So I relayed it out. Since I have this harder rosewood piece going through here, I decided to shoot for it rather than you know, next to it or whatever. So I measured over to where I should be hitting relatively close to the center of those strips. I think down here I just went out into the Spanish cedar. At any rate, I'm going to clamp it together so that when I pilot drill these holes, they're going to stay where I put them. You know, I could just do that right to the bench as well. Hold everything down that way. And I can't see center lines here, and it's not critical. I'm lining up my my template so that I'm just centered in the trace lines I had down either side. And I'm right there. Gotta double check the front end here because stuff always likes to creep on you. These little squeeze clamps are really handy, but they creep as you tighten them. All right. So, you guys are familiar with a VIX bit or not, but it's a self-centering spring-loaded bit, so that as you go down into one of these I can't even remember what the thing's called now. Anyway, I just did it. It will center, automatically centers your screw hole for you. And while everything's still clamped down, just have really short little screws, because I don't want to even get close to possibly carving through. Back there in the heel, it's never going to be an issue, but up here closer, it certainly could be. Like I said, though, these things are so short, it's not going to be a problem. All right, so that was brilliant. Well, I got a few extra holes in my blank here, because what I did was I had laid this neck out a couple times, and I ended up pushing it farther that way, farther up toward the heel. So I had two tracings of this headstock pattern, and I cut out the shorter tracing, but then I went ahead and centered it to the longer tracing. So now I have these extra holes along here. They did all go into the rosewood. Very cool. It's all right, we're going to do it again. If you have to reattach the template for any reason, you've got it. It's going to go in exactly the same place, because these are in essence indexing pins, and so it comes in kind of handy that way. And if you just sticky tape it down and then you get all excited and you peel the thing back off of there, then a lot of times you're not going to get it indexed back down in the same exact place. So there's that. I'm going to set the router up. All right. Very clean. I will go ahead and figure out what I'm going to do with my headstock profile before I do anything here, and then I'll just go up to my spindle sander and sand that radius in and finish shaping the headstock at that point.